Welcome and good to have you with us. My guest now is Reed Jackson. He's the CEO of Unison. Reed, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me, Tom. Glad to be here.
All right, and you have a theme which is helping agencies or advising them against the idea, and therefore leaning on it, of vendor lock-in. And this is an old topic. What does the contemporary version of vendor lock-in look like, and why is it not such a great idea?
It is an old topic. I really think it comes out of the battle to control and optimize the defense industrial base, this fear that if we go with one system, whether it's a major weapon system or even a software system, we're going to find ourselves really beholden to that one vendor, and we're not going to be able to make changes, and everything will become wildly expensive well after the contract. They'll bid it low, but then we'll be locked in to the vendor, and everything will get wildly expensive. In the commercial sector, people have long since dealt with vendor lock-in of software to make sure there are contractual terms and mechanisms so that you as a client have some power in the relationship and you don't get held hostage. It's not a unique concept in the world. Here in the federal space, there's still very much kind of a bugaboo about vendor lock-in. People will say to us, like, we're absolutely not going to deal with a commercial provider because we don't want to have vendor lock-in. That leaves few alternatives, and those alternatives tend to be really not substantially better and oftentimes demonstrably worse than using a proven commercial software provider, but just mitigating those factors that would lead to vendor lock-in.
And when they do get locked in, that makes subsequent modernization at some point in history much more difficult and slow, and we've seen that countless times.
Yeah, and there are lots of early cases in enterprise software where the vendors really didn't treat the government agencies very well, and perhaps those government agencies didn't put in the right protections and they found themselves held hostage. I feel like those lessons have really been overlearned by agencies, and there's now the time to move toward, let's get just smarter about how we contract with commercial providers so we can leverage all of the innovation that's happening in the commercial space and not sort of be stuck in build it ourselves, but while we're building it ourselves, the pace of technology in the commercial providers is just, taking off, and we don't want to be left behind in the federal sector when we're looking for efficiency.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can maybe get locked in by buying a proprietary commercial solution for something with no APIs and no hooks outside. But if you think that going with a government-developed or custom for government solution, that's effectively lock-in also then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, vendor lock-in is obviously just another word for switching costs, right? And when you build any system, whether physical or computer system, you go down a path and you end up being relatively path dependent. And so the switching costs from a commercial solution or a government off-the-shelf solution, custom built for government, they're still there. And I think we have to step back a little bit and look at the total life cycle of a program and think about how much innovation can we provide to the users of the system, how can we drive year in, year out efficiency for an agency, and then how do we control for those switching costs?
And you don't feel that the low code, which often gets touted as a way to re-engineer systems, low code, no code solutions that kind of ride on top of whatever the source code was, you don't feel that's a solution to lock in either?
Well, low code, no code solutions, they are just another form of government-built systems. You're hiring software developers to develop on top of these platforms. The platforms themselves may be commercial, but everything you put on top of it ends up being bespoke to your agency. We've seen time and time again in the contract lifecycle management space that there are low-code solutions that are built that end up being completely not portable to another agency because they end up being bespoke. So now you have created a great deal, kind of two layers of switching costs. You are absolutely wedded to the commercial platform to which you have to pay licenses, but you're also wedded to all of that custom software and configurations that you've built for your agency through integrators and sort of pay by the hours.
And if you have the data rights and the data portability and usability, you might say, then you can much more easily, I would think, implement this idea of continuous modernization. Well, let's just do this function, we can do this better, and you've got the data, you can code that without trying to switch everything all at once, which the government keeps trying to run up that hill over and over.
Well, I think it's very natural that people want to treat modernization as an event. While we modernize, we modernized 5 years ago. Well, technology obviously is continuing to evolve, and now faster than ever. And modernization is a process, it is a management style, it is a sort of way to organize. So the best of the agencies and the best of the folks in our federal and our commercial clients have an ongoing view of how are our business processes, how are our missions, how are our needs now in 2025 different than what they were in 2023.